Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerfherder Council.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nerfherder Council. I am your host, JT. We are live on the Nerfherder Council Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as the Facebook page and YouTube channel of the Virtual Cantina Network. We are live at those locations every other Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, guys, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. If you would like to get some awesome Virtual Cantina Network swag, just go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. And if you would like to get some completely customizable Nerfherder Council gear, you got to get some. AJ's done a phenomenal job on the multiple logos he's provided there. You can get any kind of stuff like a t-shirt, hoodies, crap, man, like mugs, all kinds of goofy stuff, man. You name it, you can get the Nerfherder Council logo on it. One of many Nerfherder Council logos, as well as Chewbacca's family. You can get that list. That's a good one. Go back and check out that episode. But anyways, you can get all that fine stuff at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. So tonight is going to be an interesting episode here for me. I do not have a co-host to introduce tonight. Tonight I'm a Mog. I'm my own best friend. So yeah, JT here, and I am flying solo. So AJ is off gallivanting around France for his job. So it's not really a pleasure trip or anything. He's actually being responsible and earning a living. So he left me in charge, and I decided to bring out a topic that I've kind of had on the back burner for a while. It's a list of movies I consider to be flawless. And I've run this past AJ several times, and he thinks it's stupid. And now he's not on the show. So real quick, the views of the Nerfherder Council, me, may not necessarily reflect those of the Virtual Cantina Network. And there may be some bad language on this show. So as I was about to say, since AJ's not here, you can fuck off because I'm doing the topic. I'm in charge, Phasma. I'm in charge. So there you go. Yeah, so yeah, just kind of wanted to go through a list of movies that I've kind of compiled. As I posted on Facebook, some of these are probably pretty obvious. In fact, very obvious, especially if you know me well. But I think some of them people are like, really, that movie? So, so a lot of these, I'm sure, are up for debate. But I think there's at least one in here that I kind of feel like if you don't agree that this is pretty much a flawless film, then there's something. So you got to screw loose. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. It's about halfway through my list here. Let's see. Look at this. Jimmy says, I'll be your co-host. Suck it. Yeah, you'd be great on a podcast. Sure. Mr. I've never done a podcast before. Says I'll co-host a podcast. Look at this. AJ is tuning in from France. He says, this show sucks in France, or your Wi-Fi sucks in Ohio. It's got to be the Wi-Fi, man. Oh, geez. So, yeah. Look at this. So I got to figure that out. People have been saying that. So if the Wi-Fi is crap, I apologize. I don't know why the hell that is. I'm plugged right in. So we'll have to fix that. But in any case, yeah. So again, this is something I've kind of wanted to do. We'll kind of jump right into it here. AJ will be back on our next episode. He'll be back. That will be, let me think, what's the date? Yeah, so it'll be January 28th will be our next episode, and we got some kind of interesting stuff coming up. I think we're gonna talk about another idea that I had. He thought was kind of interesting, but I was watching The Last Jedi the other night. I'm revisiting the sequel trilogy because I haven't watched it in a while, and I noticed some kind of cosmetic things that I think might make that trilogy more palatable for people that really don't like it. So I think we're going to talk about that. We're not going to change plot points because that's a little cheesy. That's basically us saying we could write better than people who write billion-dollar movies, which is not the case. But I think there's some things that visually and maybe, dialogue-wise or look-wise or something could really make those movies something where I don't think people would hate them as much. So we're gonna get into that. So all right. So without further ado, We are going to go in order of what I have here on my phone. The first one, it is a Star Wars show, and you got to have some Star Wars on here. And of course, you have to start with the greatest Star Wars movie, and that is, of course, The Empire Strikes Back. So, again, some of these may be obvious. This is a very obvious one for very obvious reasons, but excuse me. I mean, does anybody really deny that this is pretty much a flawless movie? I mean, it's pretty much everybody's top Star Wars film of everything that's been released. The Skywalker saga, Rogue One, Solo, yada yada yada. Um, and I think beyond the fact that just the unbelievable quality of the movie in every respect, I think what kind of makes this pretty flawless is the fact that it was coming off the back of A New Hope, which obviously was just an absolute just monolith of a movie. It changed the movie industry. It changed how we were watching movies back then. It just was such an influential film outside of the money it made and all the popularity and stuff. So when Empire comes out, the expectations were just absolutely sky high, and it actually exceeded expectations. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a Star Wars fan who would say, "Oh no, Episode 4 is better," or "I like it more." I mean, you might have a few, but this movie is pretty much universally regarded as the Star Wars film, and to achieve the level of success that it has, and not in terms of finances, in terms of how the fans have reacted to it, how it's aged. To achieve that coming off the back of something as legendary and again influential as A New Hope, I think is really, really an incredible achievement. And it steps up Star Wars, Episode 4. It steps up that movie in every regard. There's nothing where you can be like, yeah, they did this better in A New Hope. There really isn't. The effects are better. They expand on the characters. The story goes in this interesting new direction where you've got the whole Luke and Vader relationship that gets revealed. The whole thing is just another level up. And I wish I'd been a little bit older to truly appreciate that, because it came out in 1980. That's when I first saw Episode 4. As I've said on the show many times before, our local theater, when Empire was coming out, they put out A New Hope like a month or two before that, kind of a re-release. And so my parents took me to see that. And then when Empire came out, obviously we saw that. And so I was a 4-year-old kid. And to me, it was just awesome because there's stormtroopers and there's Darth Vader and, of course, Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon. And I really am interested in, kind of wondering what I would have thought about this at the time, to get that experience of, oh my God, Episode 4 was so good. I can't wait for this new one, but I hope it's not going to be, and coming out of it being like, oh my God, it's better. So, and I think what's really cool is that, you can look at Episode 4 and you could say these are, standard characters, I guess, in a way. Here's, they've said in interviews, especially Harrison Ford, like, Han Solo's like the cocky smartass, Luke is the idealistic farm boy guy, and Leia is the strong, but the strong female lead, but damsel in distress type thing. You've got the secondary characters, and Empire really takes it into kind of like an emotional area. You get the kind of love interest between Leia and Han, and of course you've got the Luke and Vader thing, and it just really expands on everything. And it's one of those rare movies where they don't just kind of regurgitate the same characters. Like, here's a sequel. These are the same people just going through a different thing. It really ramps it up. And I think the most important thing that Empire did was it really solidified Star Wars as a franchise. I think it's pretty obvious to say, but Star Wars is a huge hit. But if the next one comes out and it's just garbage, you're like, okay. It doesn't really, Star Wars doesn't become what it becomes. But when you have A New Hope and you follow it up with Empire, then all of a sudden you've got something that people are really going to latch onto. And of course, Return of the Jedi obviously buttresses that. But yeah, I just think it's an incredibly important movie. A lot of us Star Wars fans wouldn't be here without it. And this movie, and actually, I would say this about all the movies on my list. I forgot to make this caveat. So when I say that a movie is flawless, is perfect to me, it's a vibe that I get. It's like, I mean, obviously I love them and everything about them, but there are movies that I really, really love that have parts where I'm like, nah, that's kind of it's kind of cheesy, or that's kind of But these movies that I have here, especially starting with Empire, I just have a vibe like there's nothing wrong with this movie. It's just balls out all the way perfect. To me, again, it's a personal preference. So but yeah, Empire is the definite place to start, especially on a Star Wars podcast. So first one on my list, and these are in no particular order, is Empire Strikes Back. Let's get to some chat here. I'm usually better at this, but yep. AJ says the smartest play was not to outdo Star Wars, but expand what Star Wars could be. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's I think that's the best way to explain it. They just kind of said, okay, well, we're not going to redo A New Hope. We're going to take it in a different direction, and we're going to make it bigger. We're going to kind of add to what's already there, which is excellent. Joseph Wren, great to see you, man. He says, Star Wars, the greatest Star Wars movie. Is Empire flawless? As a tragedy? Maybe. Okay. All right. Aaron Taft, great to see you, man. He says, I agree it's the best Star Wars movie. It set the standard for all sequels to come. Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah. And Joseph Wren, I'm not reading your Space Whales comment, damn you. John Phillips, good to see you, man. He says, Empire is the least messed with in the special editions. See, so I don't, as we've said on the show many times, John, I don't think the special editions are crap. I don't have a problem with it because it's just added graphics. So you're right, but I can't. I will not ever have fault with the special editions. So, if anything, they introduced a whole new generation to Star Wars, which is pretty cool. So, all right. So, moving on to the next one on my list. Again, these are all personal preferences, but I don't think many people have a problem with this movie. This is, let me see here. I should probably look up the release dates of these. Oh, well, I'll do that later. Anyways, the next movie on my list, 1.21 gigawatts. It's amazing. It is, of course, Back to the Future, the first one. Love the sequels. Back to the Future 2 is awesome. It's one of my all-time favorites. Back to the Future 3, it's good, but I don't think it holds a candle to the other two. But as much as I love Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future Part 1 is where it's at. I mean, this is just a fun movie, start to finish. Everything about it. It's one of those great movies that you can watch where even though there are high-stakes moments, nothing ever gets so heavy that you kind of start feeling like bogged down a little bit emotionally. You're always just up. You're always just having a good time. And the movie moves at a fast pace. There's a bunch of different plot twists going on. It's just a really, really fun movie. And the characters are great. Marty McFly is just, is easy to root for. He's kind of like a Luke Skywalker type. Doc Brown, I mean, who doesn't love Doc Brown? I mean, that is just such an awesome, awesome character. And, the whole concept of time travel, it's such a cool concept, to kind of, I'm, to go back and see my parents, and then to have that whole thing blow up, and I gotta have my parents get together and stuff, and confronting a bully, that kind of sort of thing, and what kid can't relate to that? And guys, let's be honest, it has unreleased Eddie Van Halen guitar playing in it, which pretty much means it's flawless. So if there was a down moment in Back to the Future, it's instantly erased by the unreleased Eddie Van Halen guitar stuff. So yeah, it's just amazing. But anyway, Back to the Future is just such a fucking blast. I mean, who can't watch that movie and just have a good time. Like that is just a good mood movie. Every time I watch it, I'm just sitting there like, like a kid, like, yeah, this is a blast, And the car is cool. Like they didn't just make it out of like a 73 Gremlin or something stupid. They get this kick-ass looking DeLorean, this rare kind of sporty looking car. And the whole thing is just really, really cool. And I just it's I hate to use this word. It's such a cheese ass word, but it is one that comes to mind, unfortunately. I've just always found the movie really enchanting. The way they kind of go back to the 50s and that whole time period is displayed. I'm a big sucker for period pieces. So that'll actually come up later in my list. But yeah, they just do such a good job of presenting the 50s and the relationships and how, Marty kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, but he's trying to fit in. His dad being just a complete and total dork, but then coming out as the hero. The whole Biff character's hilarious. How he's just a big idiot. Like, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? So the whole thing is just such a fun experience. And, especially back then, it was a really original concept. I mean, I think it still is. They took the simple concept of time travel and kind of turned it on its ear to make a story that is really, really interesting and clearly had legs because it was a huge success. And then the sequel was awesome as well. I mean, there's a lot of debate about, Back to the Future Part 2. I know with a bunch of my buddies, like we kind of argue back and forth about, oh, it's great. No, it's not. Like I'm a huge proponent of that movie because I think kind of like Empire, it takes the first one and makes it bigger. I don't think it expands the characters, but like Empire does. But I do think it takes the story in a really cool direction in the second one. But I mean, it's just seeing Marty kind of like changing his family's life, by going back into the past, like is really cool. And I think it's really intelligent writing too. The way they set up the whole clock tower and the lightning strike and all that kind of thing. Like, we get stuck in the past. Well, we need 1.21 gigawatts. The only thing that can do that is a bolt of lightning. And of course, they've got the bolt of lightning. They know because he's got the flyer for the save the clock tower thing. And, that kind of stuff is like, on the surface, it seems obvious. But if you think about how many movies have tried to do something like that, and it's just been really heavy handed. I mean, Back to the Future is kind of unique in that it's a very simple kind of an idea, but it's handled really, really well. And so I thought the writing was really intelligent and the characters were really well done. And it's just a super, super fun movie. So yeah, that is the next one on my list. We will hit the chat up here. Let's see. So yeah, Aaron Taft, you mentioned the Eddie Van Halen thing. Yep. Use some Eddie Van Halen guitar stuff. Yep, that is very true. Joseph Wren says it wasn't the first time travel story, but it is the best time travel story. And he says the reason time travel is a bullshit writing trope is because your time travel idea is not as good as Back to the Future. Right. Oh my God. Yep. Aaron Taft, they recreated the 50s very well. I agree with that. John Phillips, it was great to see Back to the Future in theaters again last year. Yeah, I like that they're doing that for these anniversaries for these major movies, because it's like it's so cool to go back and watch them again. AJ and I did in the last couple of years we've done Return of the Jedi and we've done Revenge of the Sith, and it's just cool to have that theater experience. It's like it's awesome to be able to watch it at home whenever you want, but getting to see it in the theaters is nothing like it. So AJ says, I've said it before. One of the hallmarks of a great story is not that it's bulletproof, but more that the flaws don't detract from enjoying it. I think that's a great way to phrase it, man. I think I agree with that. To me, I don't see any flaws in the movies I'm presenting here, but I think that's a great point because there are movies that may have been close to making my list, but I would have to be honest and say, this one part's a little cheesy, this one part's a little, this is a little weird. So they didn't make this list, but I think that's very, very well said. I think that's very astute. So great point there, man. Aren't you supposed to say that in French, by the way? Okay. So we will move on to a movie that was released in 1986 on May 16th, 1986, to be exact. This movie has the distinction of being our late cousin Marty's favorite movie. And I think this one's pretty undeniable too. I'm, of course, talking about Top Gun. I feel the need for speed. So I think if you want to know if someone sucks, all you got to do is ask them, do you like Top Gun? And if they say no, well, then you know they suck. I don't know how it's possible to not like Top Gun. I mean, okay, let me rephrase. I'm going to be chauvinistic here. Well, not, yeah, so chauvinistic, misogynistic, whatever. As a dude, I don't know how it's possible to not like Top Gun. What more do you want? You've got jokes, you've got action, you've got fighter planes dogfighting. I don't know what more you want. That's like a wet dream for a dude, you know? So this movie was immediate for me. I know when this came out, we didn't see it in theaters. At least I don't remember seeing it in theaters, but my uncle got it on Laserdisc back then in the mid 80s. And I was hooked, completely hooked from the get-go. The movie just, it has it all. Like I said, it's so action-packed. It's so quotable. And, you know, you're hooked into this story of, you know, the whole, you know, Top Gun school and Maverick versus Iceman and all that kind of thing. And then you bring in the love interest with Kelly McGillis, Charlie's character, you know, the Charlie character. And you're so invested in the whole, okay, you know, who's going to win the Top Gun trophy and all that kind of thing. And obviously, you know, over all of it, you've got this incredible friendship between Maverick and Goose, which they do a great job. You know, I think that's one of the best things about the movie is that you have that emotional level to it there, but it plays perfectly at an equal level with the action parts of it. It's not like, you know, you find yourself way more focused on like the dogfighting and the fighter planes and stuff, and kind of like the friendship is like, okay, that's a little subplot. And by the same token, you don't find yourself weighed down like, oh, look at these best friends. Oh, sometimes they fly planes. I think they sit right next to each other perfectly. It's an awesome balance. And, you know, the pacing in the movie is such that when, spoiler alert, when you get about 2/3 of the way through or whatever it is, and, you know, they have the accident when flying with Iceman and Goose gets killed, it's like a perfect point for that. And then the emotion part takes over, and you have that for a while where, you know, Maverick is grieving and he quits Top Gun and all this kind of stuff, and he can't get back in the saddle, whatever. And then at the end, they bring it back to, okay, well, he's a fighter pilot. You got a job to do. And so I just think that the pacing of the movie is just so incredible. And they do such a great job with that friendship. It's, you know, I think that's one of the things that always stuck with me about the movie, more so than even, you know, all the other stuff I just talked about, is, you know, who can't relate to having a best friend? And, you know, if you have that best friend pass away, I mean, that's a horrible thing to deal with. I mean, you know, not to tell a personal story, but that happened to my stepson when he was 15 years old. And so, I mean, it's, you know, every best friend's fear, like, well, what happens if I lose him? And you see them, you know, Maverick experience this on screen, and just the grief and the trauma but again, it's like, you know, it's just done so very, very well. Cause again, you've got the humor, you've got the emotion to it, you've got the action parts of it. And something I thought was really cool too was, you know, at the end with Viper, where he's going through and he says, you know, yeah, I flew with your old man. So you find out that, you know, the guy heading up Top Gun, you know, kind of, you know, sympathizes or empathizes with Maverick, however you want to look at it, because he, you know, was actually a co-pilot with Maverick's father, which is kind of, you know, as they say throughout the movie, like it's kind of like the specter hanging over Maverick's head. So he kind of gets where Maverick is coming from. So they add that little layer to it late in the movie, which is just really cool. And yeah, this is again a movie that I come back to so often. Like the rewatchability of some of these movies is just absolutely incredible. And I can rewatch all of these, but Top Gun is way, way, way up there on the list for me. Um, and it's just, I don't know. There's just something about it. And I get, and probably part of it is a little bit of nostalgia for me because it was kind of the first movie that my brother and my cousins and I, at least my cousins and I, really kind of got into together. That was like our thing, was like Top Gun, to the point where I was, God, I'll never forget this. I was in ninth grade and I went to get my haircut and I wanted Maverick's haircut. And the barber my dad took me to, the barber was very old school, like older guy, and he was like a war veteran and shit like that. And I said, I want Maverick's haircut from Top Gun. He goes, "What the hell's Maverick? What's Top Gun?" I said, "Oh, it's this awesome movie about fighter pilots." And the guy's got really cool hair. He's like, "Oh, they're fighter pilots, so Navy." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay." So he gives me a flat top. So I had to go to school with this like 50s ass flat top, and I was not the most attractive kid at the time, man. I mean, I'm nothing nothing special right now, but I had acne and braces, and then I show up with a flat top. Oh God. Oh God. Joseph Friend, if AJ was on, I actually have the picture right over there, and I could actually pull it out. I do have it sitting right next to me, about 3 feet away. But yeah, so it's a very nostalgic movie. And then also, I actually did not know that this was our late cousin's favorite movie until, unfortunately, his memorial service, when my cousin, his younger brother, our cousin Chris, who's been on the show and is in the comments here and there, he mentioned it at our cousin Marty's service, and I was like, wow, man, no shit. So the Top Gun theme, that's always been one of my favorite pieces of music. I mean, first of all, it's awesome, but it's also guitar, and it's a really emotive, cool thing, and kind of encapsulates the movie to me. But now it's kind of awesome because every time I hear it, I think of my cousin. And so, Top Gun has gotten this added layer of, I don't know how to phrase it, but it's just there's a little more juice to it now from me knowing that it was my cousin's favorite, and so it's pretty cool, man. So, all righty. So Aaron Taft, he says Maverick. Yes. By the way, the sequel, that is going to be a movie we are going to talk about on the show, whether AJ likes it or not, because Top Gun Maverick is one of the greatest sequels ever created. I don't care what anybody says. Aaron Taft says, great, good soundtrack too. Yes, the Cheap Trick tune, Mighty Wings. That song is fucking awesome. He says, without this, there'd be no Hot Shots. That's true. Nice. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, so I will move on. This is probably another obvious one, I would think, at least if you know me. This movie was released on June 12th of 1981. And my brother and I may argue about other movies in this series, but I don't think anybody can argue about the beauty and the grandeur and the greatness that is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I saw this movie more than any other in the theater when it came out. Again, it was June 12th of 81. And I had my dad take me to that movie over 15 times. For some reason, I want to say it was like 19. Our local library showed a making of the movie film as part of like a kids movie series, and I rode my bike the next town over to that town's library to watch it several times. Oh my God, it's untouchably good. It is such an unbelievably fucking great movie, to the point where I actually hadn't, this is a few years ago at this point, it was probably about 10, 15 years ago, but I hadn't seen Raiders in quite a while. And I was going through some stuff at my old apartment, just like cleaning out a bunch of crap. And I came across a box full of old VHS tapes, and Raiders was one of them. And I was like, God, I haven't watched this movie in a while, man. And I put it in. Number one, I remembered every single second of it, every line, like I had just seen it the day before. And number two, I was going, God damn, this movie's good. Like, now I remember why I loved it so much. Like, and then the third thought was, why the hell did you go so long without watching it, you shithead? So, yeah, this is. I mean, what can you say about Raiders of the Lost Ark? This defines a perfect movie to me. It is so action packed. You can't help but love the character of Indiana Jones. You know, you've got Belloc, who's like the classy bad guy. You know, it's got Nazis, so the ultimate bad guy. It's like the ultimate good guy versus the ultimate bad guy. I think what probably got me into Indiana Jones as much as I am is the fact that Indiana Jones really, and I get it, Harrison Ford's the same actor, so whatever, he looks like him, but no, Indiana Jones reminds me of like a real world Han Solo. And being that I'm like the world's biggest Han Solo honk, that immediately to me was kind of like, okay, I get this. But again, I was 5 years old in 1981, and what 5-year-old kid is not going to get into Raiders? I mean, it starts out and you're in a jungle and the guy's got a bullwhip and you're like, oh, what the hell, man? And, then they go into the cave and there's a shitload of spiders. And then, he's got to get this golden idol and it's like a mystery. And then all hell breaks loose. There's the giant boulder. And this is all in like the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie. Like, what little kid is not going to lose his mind over that? And then from there, it's just off and running. The search for the Grail and going against the Nazis and all the crazy, crazy scenes, and it's, it's just, again, I like kind of like what I said about Back to the Future. It's just fun. And there's never those moments of it there's obviously high stakes moments for the characters and, but it never gets too heavy to where, it's just not, like you kind of get bogged down. Like I said about Back to the Future, it's just always fun. You're always up. And the stuff that Indiana Jones gets into and gets out of is just hilarious. And, he's, goes underneath the truck and he's like dragged beneath it and everything. And, I mean, come on, they're searching for the lost Ark of the Covenant, like that in itself. And, it's so much fun. And, we'd never really seen anything like this before. And it's just such a fun story because it's like, oh my God, this hugely important historical artifact that no one's found. And he's going after it. And it's a race against the Nazis. And, it takes, archaeology pretty boring, let's be honest. And it makes it awesome. You know what I mean? So, he's a school teacher, except that he goes out and kicks ass in like Tunisia and all this kind of stuff. And again, all this crazy shit happens. You got the guy tries to poison him, and then he's hanging out with Mary, and so you've got the love interest whole thing going on, and the comedic aspects of it, and the whole thing is just beautifully, beautifully done. And I get it. You can say what you want about the subsequent ones, and I know there's a lot of debate between whether or not Raiders is better than Last Crusade, and then you can go through whatever you want with Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny. Personally, I love them all. I love the character of Indiana Jones. I just love the lunacy of all the shit that he gets into. And, I think, to me, this one does for Indiana Jones what Empire did for Star Wars, and it cements it as like a franchise, which is weird to say because it's the first one, but I think it's so good. And the character is so likable, and it's just so much fun that you kind of establish thing where you could plug this guy into pretty much anything. And so after that, I think, people would say, yeah, I'll sign on for an Indiana Jones movie. Shit. Yeah, man. And even to the point where, Temple of Doom is people are kind of hit and miss on that one. And they still were like, okay. So when they put out Last Crusade, everyone still flocked out to the theaters to see it. So, this movie's just a total fucking blast. And it's got such a cool atmosphere, being in the desert and all that kind of stuff. And then, the stuff at the end with the arc, and the guy's head exploding and the other dude's face melting, and all this kind of the supernatural aspect of things. Like it's just such a blast, and it was so unique, and it grabbed me right away and just has never let go. Honestly, when I was putting this list together, this was one of the first, if not the first movie that I thought of when I think of like a perfect movie. So um Dave Spano, great to see you, man. Hope the radio show's going good, dude. He says, don't forget Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. If you haven't played it, do it. A perfect indie adventure. Thank you for mentioning that. You are completely 100% right. I actually just finished Order of Giants, the DLC, like the additional content. Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is an awesome video game. It's like basically playing like the sixth movie. And the best part about it is to teach you the controls of the game. The very first mission is actually doing the beginning of Raiders up to where the boulder comes down. So, I mean, you get to play the opening of Raiders in that game. That right there is worth the price of admission. So, Spano, great point, man. Great point, man. Great to see you, brother. All right. So let's see. Let's go to the chat here on this one. Skip Bruckle. There we go. Raiders was amazing, especially when it's the first time. Yeah. That movie just blows your mind. You're like, oh my God, this is so much fun, man. John Phillips says, regardless what Big Bang says, the Germans would have never found the Ark without Indy. Well, of course not. They're Nazis. They're evil, man. They're too stupid to find it. Aaron Tabs, yep, he mentioned it too. He said, it's got melting faces too. Nick Hall says, this one is the best Indy, but not my favorite. I absolutely love Last Crusade. It's interesting you mentioned that, Nick, because I kind of feel the same way about Empire and Revenge of the Sith. I feel the same way. I think the best Star Wars movie is Empire, but my favorite is Revenge of the Sith. So I can completely understand where you're coming from. Joseph Wren, my bad guy is more evil than your bad guy. JT, my bad guys are Nazis. Ah, damn, you win. So Nick Hall, great point. He says an indie bitch kicks a Dolph Lundgren wannabe into a plane propeller. Yeah. When you chop up a giant, muscular, bald, like Iron Sheik looking Nazi guy, you chop him up with a plane propeller. Yeah, that's a pretty good sign that a movie is kicking ass. So, yeah, completely agree with that, man. There's just so much to love about this one. All righty, so let's move on to the next movie on my list. This movie was released in 1987, July 17th, to be exact. And this is one where I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me that it is perfect, but it's my list, and I think it's perfect. I think it's cheesy. I think it's bloody, and I think it's fucking awesome. If you don't agree, there will be trouble. RoboCop, baby. The original RoboCop. Let's go. One of my buddies thinks this is a stupid, terrible movie, and I think he's a stupid, terrible person, and I'll tell him that when I see him tomorrow night. I do remind him of that frequently, but yeah, what's not to love about RoboCop, man? I mean, dude, it's RoboCop. It's RoboCop. Just look at the character. If you just saw that movie poster and you had no idea what it is, just show RoboCop standing by the car and it says RoboCop, wouldn't you be like, I'm buying a ticket? Yeah, see Aaron Taft. Yeah, Aaron Taft. I'll buy that for $1. Oh my God. Yeah, this movie is just a complete and total blast. It's just, the reason that it's flawless to me is because it is cheesy and it leans into the cheese, and they purposely made it over the top gory. They purposely went too far with all of the effects. They said openly, someone's going to get shot, they're going to get shot 10 times. If the blood's going to splatter here, it's going to splatter everywhere. And who doesn't like seeing that? And it's got the awesome cheesy, 80s stop motion animation with ED 209. And there's just nothing too heavy here. And they play up the, he's got a partner, Lewis, whatever, and they play up, he had a family and all that stuff. But really, it doesn't matter. You're like, okay, that's part of it. You showed up to see RoboCop kick a whole lot of ass. And what did you get? RoboCop kicking a whole lot of ass. And it's just phenomenal. And it's again, it's that classic example of the over the top good guy versus the over the top evil bad guy. You know, Clarence Boddicker and all of his cronies and whatnot. They're just the worst of the worst. Every one of them just sucks. Like it's just, oh my god, it's so great. And then you've got, you know, Dick Jones running everything. Of course, they have to make, you know, the main bad guy's name is Dick, you know, stuff like that. Like, um, just the way that the tongue in cheek sarcasm and the satire, you know, the way the news, you know, the commercials on the news reports and stuff like that, like where they've got like the mechanical heart and things like that, and it's just, oh my god, it's so fucking awesome. And I, speaking of rewatchability, I can just put this movie on anytime. It's just so great. You know, it's just a complete and total symbol of 80s excess. You know, even to the point where, you know, the car, like the main car that they have in this thing is the sucks ninth whatever 2000 whatever SUX 9000 whatever the hell it is. Like it's just so great, man. The cheese is just way over the top, and um just I love watching this movie because not only did the bad guys get it, but they really get it. You know, the one guy gets dumped. Of course, he gets dumped in a vat of toxic waste, and then a van runs into it, a car runs into it, just explodes everywhere. Um, you know, there's blood flying all over the place, and dude, it's I wish the rest of the movies had been cool like this one. They got obviously very shitty. But you know, my buddy Spano, uh, he says in the chat, it's a stupid, terrible movie, which actually makes it awesome. Yeah, the cheese factor and all the corniness to it, that's what's awesome about it. Um, and since you brought up Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, if you guys have not played RoboCop Rogue City, that is amazing as well. It's like playing the RoboCop movie. You're kind of indestructible. You can set the different, obviously, difficulty levels, but you know, you're RoboCop. You're walking around just blowing away bad guys, and they do it kind of like they do in the movie. You can like change the settings on your gun with chipboards, like chipboards and stuff, like a computer. And one of the things that you can amp up and amp up and amp up is the gore level, so that when you kill guys, like it, you know, you see a little bit of blood, but then as you ramp it up, it's like their like heads are exploding, and you know, arms and legs. You even hear the guy goes, ah, he shot off my fucking arm. Like it's just awesome. So I actually got there's like an add-on to it called Unfinished Business, and I just started that. And apparently that one, I think you get to play as the ED-209, which that'd be really cool. But yeah, I mean, RoboCop's just, dude, it's such a dude movie. It's just such a guy movie. It's like an 80s guy movie. So what a blast. If you haven't seen it, definitely do so. And if you are a fan of the movie, I think it's still available for free on Prime, but there's a multi-part, pretty long documentary about the making of it called Robo Doc, DOC, and it goes into a lot of detail about the making of the movie, and it's really, really fascinating. As a big fan of behind the scenes stuff like I am, I really enjoy that. So check that out. So a couple comments in the chat here. Joseph Friend says, mash it up with Star Wars for bonus points. I have altered the deal. You have 15 seconds to comply. He says, one of my favorite films of all time. I don't even mind the first sequel that much. It's goofy, but it's more fucking RoboCop. I could give you that. It gets cheesy, but you know, it's not bad. It's just not great. John Phillips says, saw RoboCop when I was 14. Harshest R-rated film I've seen in a theater, and I've seen Rob Zombie movies. Yeah. Yep. And Joseph Friend says, leave it to a kick-ass Italian director to make RoboCop, but secretly make an anti-excess, anti-TV, anti-marketing film out of it. Brilliant. Totally agree, man. All right. So I do have a couple serious movies on my list here. So let's get to one of those. This is a movie I know I saw in theaters, and I saw it with my best friend Andy. This movie was released on July 24th of 98, and his family, I believe his grandfather, was a World War II veteran, and this movie was announced. And he said, "Hey, do you want to go to the theater and see this?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" I'm a history buff, and Andy was a history major in college. Um, so it's kind of like a no brainer, especially when I saw the trailers for it. This is one, I'd mentioned at the beginning of the show that I think if someone says, "Yeah, you got a problem with this movie," I think the problem is you, and I don't think you're very patriotic. I'm talking about Saving Private Ryan. This, oh my god, I actually put this on in the background while I was working today, and I mean, just the opening sequence alone, that you know, scene of them storming the beach at Normandy is, I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but I had heard and read that people were saying that they actually had to set up like a hotline because it was giving war veterans flashbacks because of how realistic and gritty it was. Um, but I mean, right off the bat, it hits you in the feels. I hate that term, but it's what it does. You've got who you find out at the end of the movie, uh, who is the elder version of Private James Ryan, and he's with his family and he's visiting the cemetery at Normandy. And then, of course, you've got the whole battle scene of them storming the beach and all that kind of stuff, and just the unbelievable amount of devastation that's displayed there. And then immediately after that, you've got the general talking about, they're like, "Hey, man, the mom is going to get letters saying 3 of her 4 boys are deceased." She's getting all those letters at the same time, and the general saying, "That boy's alive, and we're going over there, and we're going to get him the hell out of there." And then it shows, the military car driving up the long driveway on the farm, and the mom going out on the porch and just collapsing, and just the emotion right off the rip in that movie. You're just like, holy shit, man. And I mean, you want to talk about just such an emotionally powerful movie. Just the concept alone. I mean, it's based on a true story, and just that concept of a family sending their 4 sons to war, and all but one potentially losing their life. And then so you've got that whole thing, and then you've got the guys who are sent on this mission to find Private James Ryan and get him the hell out so he can go home. And there is that, and they mentioned it through the film a couple times, especially the one lieutenant guy. They talk about, like, basically, like, why is his life more valuable than ours? I got a mother, Caparzo's got a mother, all this kind of stuff. So it's just, they balance the war scenes, the battle scenes, with this just unbelievably emotionally heavy storyline. And I mean, all of the characters are compelling. And even though you don't get there's not a ton of those moments of depth between a lot of them. There's a sniper guy, and the you know what I'm saying. But anyways, you still really kind of get to know them and the interplay and the relationship between them, and it's just a beautifully done movie. And I don't know how anybody could have a problem with this movie. Again, if you don't like this movie, I think there's something wrong with you. I understand it could be hard to watch. The violence is very realistic. So that part I understand, but there's just this movie has everything going for it. It's just so compelling. And especially at the end when they do find Ryan and he's telling that story about the night before they shipped out to basic, and he's talking about his brothers in the barn and all that kind of stuff, and you can see he's like laughing and everything, and then at the end it kind of hits him. The whole thing kind of, you can see it kind of settle on him, and it's phew. And then of course, Tom Hanks's character leading the whole thing, and being kind of mysterious. They don't know where he's from, what he does, and they finally find out at the end he does that so he can kind of keep them together when everything seems like it's kind of falling apart. And then of course, he gives his life, which is the ultimate sacrifice, obviously. And man, what a powerful movie. Um, I cried several times in the theater when I saw it. I'm not even gonna lie, but I mean, it's very poignant, and I think that it looks so realistic, and the acting is just so unbelievably good that you can't help but get sucked into it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of war movies, let's face it, but I don't think there's any that do it quite on this level. There are almost all of them. There's that, even the most realistic of them, you kind of still have that little bit of like a Hollywood edge to them in the teeniest little bit. But this one, you don't have any of that. Like, you're down in the mud, you're out on the beach, you're in the foxhole kind of thing. And I think that's what sets this one apart. And man, just what an incredible movie. Um, so yeah. So Joseph Friend says, what we're learning is JT thinks Spielberg cannot make a film that is not perfect, which is not wrong. I don't like every Steven Spielberg movie. Yeah, that is not true. Aaron Taft, he says, great movie, but hard to watch. Joseph Friend also says, I always wondered if it's actually a thing today or yesterday, that if the last born son of a family is in war, if they will be pulled out like this movie does. That's a good question. I wonder if it's like multiple, like if you got like 4 or 5 and like all but one, or if it's like if you got like because I don't think it's like if you have like if it's 2 kids, like the one brother, unfortunately gets killed in action. I don't think they pull the other one out, but yeah, John Phillips, good point. He says, I'd argue Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds is terrible. I don't mind that one as much as some people, John, but it's definitely not great. Spano, he says, it's roughly cost $900 billion to save Matt Damon between Saving Private Ryan, The Martian, Elysium, Courage Under Fire, and Interstellar. Yeah, fuck that guy. He keeps getting himself in hot water. Just let him go at some point, man. Matt Damon. That's his best role. Team America World Police. By the way, Team America World Police almost made my list because that is just an awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. The guys in South Park made it, and it's all marionettes, and it's just awesome. So, okay. Moving on, we'll lighten the mood to a movie that came out on August 17th of 2007. This is it's in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It's easily top 5 funniest movies of all time. It may be the funniest. Blazing Saddles is always up there. So, but when I saw this movie in the theater, I was laughing for like easily the first, what was it, like 30 minutes or 25, however long it takes to get to this particular line I will mention. And I finally started calming down. And all of a sudden, Jonah Hill goes, well, Jules, the funny thing about my back is it's located on my cock. And I absolutely just completely lost it. And I don't know why I don't have the thumbnail for it, but I will go back to my standard thumbnail here. I'm talking about Superbad. So, dude, Superbad is so ungodly funny that it's just, I don't even know how to describe it. I laugh at that movie from start to finish. It's one of those rare comedies where you know how, like, most comedies, like, you'll say like the first third, the first half, even maybe the first 3/4, hilarious, and then it just kind of gets, you've had your laughs, it gets kind of meh, and then you get to the end of the movie, okay, cool, it's over. Superbad is not that. It stays hilarious the whole time, and I think what makes it so hilarious is the fact that it's so damn relatable. Especially for someone like me, who was kind of like that dorky kid in high school, and I couldn't get a date to save my ass, and I mean, hell, as I said, I had fucking flat top, but yeah, like, I could completely relate to that movie. Because you're hanging out with your best friend in high school, and you're all you're thinking about is chicks and stuff like that, and partying and whatnot. Like, it's just, which one of us didn't go through that? And It's just, it is so eminently quotable and so ridiculous. And they have this just crazy, crazy adventure, all based around trying to get booze to a party. It does. There's no emotional stakes to it. There's no weight to it. It's just two dorky high school kids trying to fit in by getting booze into a party because they want to hook up with a couple of chicks. it's it's just so stupid, man. And I think what really sets this what sets this movie apart is the dialogue. And it is so intelligently written. And a lot of times some of the funniest stuff are jokes that kind of happen at the end of a scene. They're almost in the background. It's like somebody just said something at the last second, you know. So it's just, it's so silly. And I love intelligent writing, and I think this movie, for as dumb as it may seem on the surface, I think this movie absolutely nails it. Um, it's just completely hilarious. What's the like when they're driving around in the cop car, and he says, he was like, oh, many years. He does the Yoda thing. He goes, Yoda from Attack of the Clones. Like, he didn't even say like Empire Strikes Back, the movie everybody knows Yoda from. I was like, Yoda, Attack of the Clones. Like, and that's just like, that is so awesome. So I mean, just things like that. And it's God, it's so funny. It's just so damn funny. And and as much as, like I said, it doesn't matter and there's not emotional stakes. um Sammy Hagar, Billy Morris, Sammy Hagar. uh John Phillips is super bad, the McLovin one. Yes it is. um as much as I said there's like not emotional stakes, there really is the best friend thing, which comes into play. And you've got Jonah Hill's character Seth, who's kind of the bad influence, and then you've got Michael Cera's character, who is like the goody two shoes. And it's just the way they play off each other, and then you bring in McLovin as this third character, and he's that stupid fake ID, and he's just so ridiculous. And the whole thing is just, again, I laugh all the way through this movie. And even the other comedies that I love, I don't think almost any of them you can say that like you can with Superbad. I mean, not disparaging Blazing Saddles, that movie is amazing, but the laughs do kind of tail off for the last little piece of that movie. Superbad, no. Superbad is like even like you're like 3 minutes left in the movie when they're at the mall and he's trying on clothes, and he's like, he's saying how tight the pants are and everything. He's like, it looks like three dudes in a Volkswagen or something like that. I mean, like, just things like that, man. It's just such a fucking hilarious movie. I rewatch this one all the time, and if you haven't seen it, I absolutely cannot recommend it enough. It's just so good. It's just a dumb high school best friend comedy, and like other stuff that I like, it's just super super quotable, and it's amazing. I don't think they've released a movie this funny since, to be honest with you, and it's been almost 20 years. That's probably old man get off my lawn speak right there, but yeah, that's how I feel about that one. So, all right, moving on. This next one was a movie, getting back into some more serious territory. This one is going to be interesting because I don't know how many people have seen this movie, but this one was released on March 24th of 1995. And I've said on the show before, I am a big fan of Stephen King adaptations. And this is one that doesn't get talked about a lot when people are running down lists of the best or worst Stephen King adaptations. For me, this is by far one of the best. It's definitely up there, probably only with Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile in terms of following the book and doing it justice. number one, you can't go wrong with this movie strictly because of the lead actor, which is Kathy Bates. This one is Dolores Claiborne. Again, I don't know many people have really seen this movie. I don't see it talked about a lot, but this is an awesome movie. It's hard to describe the plot. I'll try not to spoilerific it, but basically Dolores Claiborne is like the housekeeper, assistant, whatever, for a rich widow, and she does it for several decades. And the rich widow dies, and Dolores Claiborne is kind of like accused of her murder. And in the course of going through, the inquest about what happened and stuff, it happens in a small Maine town. Go figure. It's Stephen King. The story comes out about how Dolores Claiborne supposedly killed her husband years ago during an eclipse. And the two stories converge, and the way that they converge is fucking great. And I think the reason that I love this movie so much is, number one, the book is phenomenal. I would highly recommend reading it if you're not familiar with it. If you're a Stephen King fan, haven't read Dolores Claiborne, you gotta check it out. It's really, really, really good. But the movie does change a couple of things here and there, because to pare it down to get it into like a 2 hour and 15-minute movie or whatever it is. But they do it well. They don't chop out important parts that you need. They don't change important plot points that shouldn't be changed, which, as I've said on the show before, is a big complaint of mine when people are making movies out of books. Stuff like The Dark Tower, where they basically completely invalidate an entire character based on casting changes. So yeah, they just do an awesome job of turning a really good book into a really good movie. And they kind of do it. They kind of change the point of view in the movie, and it completely works. So in the book, it's Dolores Claiborne telling her own story, and she has 3 children. And in the movie, it's very much about, there's only one of her children. It's her oldest daughter, in the book, Selena. And in the movie, it's very much a Dolores Claiborne mother-daughter story, along with those 2 main plot points that I mentioned. And they kind of change it around to where one of the main plot points, they really focus in on how it affects Selena, and that their relationship is estranged, and then it kind of things happen, and then so the changes that they made perspective wise really, really work and don't take away from the original story at all. It almost like plays alongside. It's almost like seeing the original story in a different viewpoint, which is great, because if you're going to change things and adapt a book, that's the way to do it. They do an awesome job with it. So that's, I think, my favorite part of it is that all of the heart and the soul, and really, I mean, it gets into some difficult subject matter, and that's still here. They don't shy away from it, and they kind of lean into it. And I just think it really, really works. The way they change things up to make it into a movie does nothing to detract from the source material. It just kind of sits perfectly alongside it. It's another way to look at it. It's like seeing it through a different lens, which is really, really cool. So if you guys have not checked out Dolores Claiborne, I would highly, highly recommend it. Both the book and the movie. The book is an easy read. It's not too long. I want to say it might even be a novella. It's definitely not a long one, especially in terms of, that's what she said, especially in terms of, Stephen King books. So if you're a reader, highly recommend it. Very, very good. And then check out the movie afterwards. And I think people would agree that it's definitely, a very good adaptation of that. All right. So speaking of Stephen King, I have another one on my list that does not get talked about very much either in terms of adaptations. And this one is way up there on my list as well. It was released on November 21st of 2007. This is one of those Stephen King adaptations where they changed basically, like, I think, like one detail. and it really kind of didn't matter the one they changed. But they did change the ending. It may be my favorite movie ending ever because it is dark as fuck. This one that I am talking about, oh, giant bugs. Fuck this movie. I'm talking about The Mist. So great story. Again, this one I know is a novella. So if you want to read the book first and then check out the movie, I would recommend doing so. Again, an easy read, not too long, and the movie follows follows it pretty much verbatim for the most part. So this is a really interesting story. It's kind of like one of those, kind of like a social commentary, I would say. So basically, it's again, go figure, set in a small Maine town, and his father goes with his young son to the grocery store, and while they're in this grocery store, this mysterious mist envelops the whole town, and they don't know if they can go out or not. What are we going to do? And someone goes out in the mist and they just get eviscerated. So it's like, oh shit, we're stuck in this grocery store. So basically what ensues is kind of like one of those scenarios, like what happens when society breaks down into kind of like little cliques, when your life is at stake and you're kind of stuck in this life and death situation. Like you don't know how you can get out of this. People kind of take sides and they start butting heads, and cooler heads definitely do not prevail. So it's really interesting because it's kind of like an alien story in one way, but it's also very much a study in what happens when societal barriers break down. And it's just really, really cool the way that they handle this, because you've got, the dad and his son, and then, they've got a couple people that they kind of band together with. And then there's like a Jesus freak lady in there. And she, people start having such a freak out that she starts drawing people to her. So you've got the whole, like the Bible thumping crew who decide that everybody else are sinners and they got to go, and all that sort of thing. And then you've got, these giant, horrible monster creature things all over the place, that have to be dealt with at times during the story. And this is just a very dark, heavy kind of a movie. Unlike some of the other ones on my list, I can't say that this is a fun movie. I mean, it's fun to watch because it's great, but it's definitely heavy, like from pretty much start to finish. Not a lot of light in this movie at all. But I like movies like that sometimes. I actually have an honorable mention on here that kind of gets into that territory. But yeah, it's just the way that the characters interact, and when you have these little factions, people breaking off into factions, and the way that they deal with each other when they're all stuck in this grocery store, it's just fascinating. And then again, to combine that with just the fun elements of a monster movie, I think it works really, really well. And as I said about Dolores Claiborne, and as I've said many times, it's a good book, and I like when books are adapted and they don't fuck with it, because if a book is good enough for you to want to make a movie of it, that means it should be good enough for you not to screw with it. I've always kind of compared it to going to, if I go to see a Van Halen tribute band, I want to hear you play Panama. I don't want to hear your interpretation of Panama. I'm there to hear Panama. So play the damn song the way it's meant to be played. And it's the same thing with book to movie adaptation. So this one absolutely knocks it out of the park. And again, what really makes it for me is that the ending is one of the darkest things you will ever see. And when I was in the theater, I saw it with my family. I want to say it was like I think it was Thanksgiving. We all went as a family. It was like we had our dinner, stuff like, yeah, let's go to the movie. And at the end, the ending goes off, and I was like, yeah. And everybody else is like, what is wrong with you? That is horrible. I'm like, that's why it's awesome. So yeah, just a fantastic ending. Very, very dark, which I'm a huge fan of. So Joseph Wren wants to know, what is your favorite King novel that hasn't been adapted into film or television yet. Bad adaptations count. Okay, so I can't count ones that have already been done that suck. Ooh, that is a very good question because I think all the ones that I like the best have been made into movies. Desperation was a made-for-TV movie. That one's like very cheesy 80s-ish, which is really good. That's tough. I mean, obviously, It is way up there for me. I like that. They've done 11/22/63 as a miniseries. They did The Dark Half is one I really love, and there is a movie of it. I That's one I think that could be revisited, but so that one wouldn't count. Man, I don't know. I've read so much of his stuff. I'm trying to think of. I mean, pretty much all the stuff that I really like, there are adaptations of. Um, it's interesting, man. It's interesting that they really can't get so many of these things right, though. Like, there's never been an awesome adaptation of Salem's Lot, which for me is weird because that seems like an easy one to do. The Shining, they haven't been able to get right. That Stanley Kubrick one, I won't even watch it because it veers wildly from the book, and Stephen King himself said it's a piece of shit. And I've seen the ending of it. I'm like, that's not how the book ends. So yeah, I don't know, Joe. That's a good question. Because like I say, all the ones that I really like have been made into movies. The Body turned into Stand By Me. That was awesome. Obviously, Shawshank Redemption was really good. I'd have to think about it because all my favorite stuff is already done. So, Joe says, I have a soft spot for Kingdom Hospital myself. I've never watched that. I got to check that one out. I tried watching that Castle Rock series that they did a couple seasons of recently, and I was just like, I mean, it's got the Stephen King vibe to it, but I'm like, with the story, I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I finished it, but it pissed me off because I was like, what is this? So anyway, all right, let's move on to the next movie. I've only got a couple left here. So this movie, I know that this was released in 1991 because I was in high school and I missed going to the theater to see it for some stupid reason. This is one I definitely wish I'd seen in theaters. I'll be back. And he was back in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, of course. Arnold Schwarzenegger and T2. This movie is just like, I think this kind of falls under the heading of, when we talked about, Empire, about how it takes the original and ramps it up and adds to it. The first movie was, just the Terminator is dag nasty evil, and Kyle is trying to save Sarah Connor, and it's good versus bad. It's an action flick, very cool action flick, awesome stuff. It's got those awesomely cheesy 80s effects, which, as I said earlier, I love. Yeah, Aaron Taft nails it. He says one of the greatest sequels of all time. Could not agree more, man. This is definitely on my list of absolutely untouchably great sequels. But I think what sets this one apart is that it really kind of turns the series on its ear. Instead of just saying, okay, well, there's more Terminators or there's a different Terminator, which they do. You've got the T-1000, the liquid metal. They swap it around and make the T-800. They make him the good guy now, which is just such a cool way to turn things around. And you've got him kind of being like you've got the whole father figure storyline going on with him and John Connor. Sarah Connor is like completely militant and everything and doesn't trust him. But then, as the story goes along, obviously that begins to change a little bit. And especially at the end, it's kind of like, okay, like I get it. For basically was just a huge, big budget, CG action fest. There's a lot of heart to this movie. Again, the way that the interplay works between John Connor and the Terminator, it's pretty interesting because you do kind of find yourself, getting a little bit emotionally attached to that Terminator. It's kind of like it's not as extreme as the example I'm about to give, but if you guys have ever seen District 9, the way you kind of find yourself siding with these ridiculously ugly aliens, and you feel for them, and you're like sad for like that is hard to do, and they pull that off in this one. I don't think to that degree, but you really kind of, when especially in the end sequence when he's getting ripped to shreds by the T-1000, and you kind of know where it's going. It's, and John Connor's crying because he's got to, self terminate, or he can't self terminate, but you know what I mean. Like he's got to be lowered into the steel and he has to be destroyed. John Connor's just losing it and sobbing, and there's a lot of heart to this movie, but more than that, I mean, dude, what a kick-ass action flick. I mean, and especially for back then, with the T-1000 back and seeing, when got the shotgun blast in it was all blown to like a giant sea and stuff like that. Like, oh my God, you saw that and it comes back together and you're like, holy shit. And it's awesome because you think, as this thing's coming on and coming on and coming on, you're like, well, how are they going to defeat it? Like you start trying to work out in your head, like what could you possibly do to this thing to make it stop, to like eliminate the threat? And you can't think of anything. And then near the end of the movie, they get into the steel mill, and of course they blow up they ram the truck full of liquid nitrogen or whatever, and the thing freezes. You're like, oh, that's how. Okay. So you're like, okay, they beat it, they blow it into pieces. It's frozen. Oh, no, it gets hot again, and then it melts, and it comes back together. So even that doesn't work. So, the thing just seems indestructible. It seems insurmountable. And there's always there's such a great sense of tension throughout the movie. You never know how close behind the T-1000 is, and that it's always on their trail. And so you're never quite comfortable. Even, they get out to the desert with Sarah Connor's old friend and stuff, and they pull all the weapons out of the ground. And, no matter how far they go, in the back of your mind, you're wondering like, okay, well, where is it? Is it just going to pop out at any moment and kind of start, wasting people? Like, and that just adds such a cool element to it. At least for me, I always love that, how you're kind of like that little bit tense throughout the whole thing. And God, again, it's just such a fun movie. There's a couple humorous parts, which is always good, a little bit of levity to break up the seriousness of it. But again, I think what it does really well is it takes an established movie, the first one, Terminator, which was, very, very well received. And again, it was just, an awesome, cheesy 80s action flick, and it builds upon it, and it just makes it bigger and better. So it's kind of like, to oversimplify, it's like saying, oh, you like Terminator? Well, here's more, but bigger and better, and, more stakes. Like it's cool. So just a great fucking movie, man. And it's definitely one that it's hard to put down. There are other movies on this list, like I've seen them a bunch, and if I'm just scrolling at somebody's house, or and we got putting something on in the background, and this happens to come on, one of these movies happens to come on, some of them I'll be like, yeah, whatever, cool. This is one of I just can't turn away. It just grabs my attention, and man, what a great movie. What a great movie. And as we mentioned, one of the very best sequels of all time. Just untouchably great. It sucks that the rest of them are kind of like I still have yet to see Dark Fate, the most recent one. I heard it's kind of like a redo of T2, so maybe I should check it out, but the rest of them were so kind of disappointing that, oh well. Nick Hall says, this was my number one for a hell of a long time. The T-1000 was the apex villain. Yeah. Dude, again, like the whole time you're watching the movie, you're like, how are they going to kill this thing? Like, what can they possibly do to kill it? And the funny part about that is at the end, when they throw them into the molten steel, you're like, oh, I guess I should have thought of that. You just melt them. Like, okay. John Phillips says T2 is really T1 redone, and it's still great. See, I don't think it's T1 redone, man, because it's. I mean, you could say that because it's a Terminator chasing Sarah Connor, but I think it's different enough because turning the T-800 into the good guy and turning him from the villain to the hero is a really it's something you don't see a lot. It's not an overused like trope in terms of movie making. So I think that sets it apart a lot personally. That's just my personal preference, my personal opinion, I should say. Joseph Wren says, my Fright Lab co-host mentions Terminator 2 as a template for It Follows. From an antagonistic perspective, it's perfect because it's just coming for you and it doesn't stop. Yeah. Like I said, like how in the hell are you going to get rid of this damn thing? Like you can't get rid of it. And the whole time you're trying to figure out what can they possibly do and you can't. But then, as I just said, you eventually go, oh shit, just melt them. Yeah. So Troy Halter, thanks for tuning in, man. Good to see you. He says T2 is top 10 for me. He says hard to live up to T2. Bless him for trying though. Yeah. That's another thing that's kind of interesting to think about, isn't it? Like where, because obviously all the subsequent movies are not great and some of them are downright crap. But it's kind of like, well, where can you go with the story in a way? So no one has really come up with that good next step that actually works. I've tried to think of it, and I'm not very bright, so it's not like this is, I'm some genius that would have figured it out. But yeah, I can't think of anything, and I've tried because it's an interesting thought exercise, I think, to say, well, the hell would we do? How would we make this awesome? What should Terminator 3 have been? So, all right. So this next one comes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think I mentioned this when we talked about those movies earlier on the show. This movie was released on July 19th, 2011. And I will die on the hill of the fact that it is the best Marvel movie ever made. It's definitely probably my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And it's next on my list of perfect films. It is Captain America: First Avenger. Winter Soldier is untouchably great. Civil War, pretty good. I honestly haven't seen the newest one. What, Brave New World, I think it's called. But dude, nothing will ever top First Avenger for me. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm a huge sucker for period pieces, and I'm a huge sucker for World War II history. And I'm not a big comic book guy, but whenever I did see comic book characters and read here and there, the teeny bit that I did as a kid growing up, Captain America was always my guy. Probably just because he was just so righteous and so good, I just kind of latched onto that. So when you combine my favorite comic book character with a period piece and World War II stuff, yeah, I'm definitely going to like the movie. But admittedly, when I went in to see it in the theaters when it came out, I wasn't expecting to love it the way that I did. And it just keeps getting better and better for me. I think, it's just, it's kind of simplistic. I'm sure people would admit, it's very black and white. You've got perfect Steve Rogers against super evil Red Skull and the Nazis, and Hydra. So very common, but I think it works, because I think when you're talking about introducing a character like Captain America, especially back in the 40s, with kind of the idealism of that era and the patriotism of with the war going on and stuff like that, you kind of can't have any other villain besides the most evil, just dastardly possible person you can, and that would be Red Skull, and obviously the Nazis and Hydra and stuff like that. But I think beyond that, I think that the movie is just, I don't know how to describe it. It's I just love the feel of it because of that 1940s kind of feel. I think they do a really good job of setting it in that time period. The way the characters kind of interact, it's so well done. And it doesn't feel like, modern comic book stuff just crammed into the World War II, kind of like backdrop. It doesn't feel like that to me. And for that reason, I think it really, really works. And there's just something about the character of Steve Rogers that I've always loved. And, I've said it before, he's my third favorite movie character of all time. Of course, it goes Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Captain America. And I just think, there's tons of great action. Obviously, you get to see how Captain America comes to be, which is really, really cool. But above all that, there's just something charming about the movie. Again, I think it's because it feels like an old timey movie. Obviously until the very end, but it has just a great feel to it, and the love interest part with um, Peggy is very kind of, it's there, but you can tell it's kind of understated. And I always thought, it was really, really cool that, even when Steve Rogers, goes from the skinny, like 5'2" little wimpy guy to the huge, muscular, 6 foot tall Captain America, he retains that innocence. And, it's, and of course, they talk about it, Dr. Erskine, he talks about, makes a good man better or whatever, makes a bad man more evil, however the hell they phrase it. And so it would make sense that all of Steve's good qualities become amplified, but it's cool to see, and he's still kind of awkward around Peggy, even though now he's like this super handsome, super muscular, ripped, hero of all heroes guy. It's charming. See him kind of like be bumbling, fumbling, I don't know how to talk to girls guy with her. And so that's just a really cool kind of subplot there. And, and especially at the end when the plane's going down and, and they're talking about, going out dancing and stuff like that. And, it's just awesome. And again, I love how they kind of juxtapose the whole World War II thing against, what's happening in the Marvel universe. It's cool to bring that in. And, that was obviously, let me think. Yeah, that's if you watch the Marvel movies in terms of like chronological order, in terms of when they happen in the real world, I guess that's the best way to phrase it. First Avengers first, obviously. And that's the only time we really see that time period, which really makes it stand out in the Marvel universe. It definitely sticks out like a sore thumb because it's all like, old, I guess is the only way to phrase it. But yeah, the reason this is on my list is because again, every time I see it, I love it. And I get a different feeling off of this movie than I do the other films. And I love all the other ones, especially I love all the other films in the Infinity Saga. Maybe Incredible Hulk, not so much. That one's kind of, but this one just has a different feel to it. I think this one has a lot more heart than any of the other ones. Even stuff that does have a lot of heart, some of the Iron Man moments and things like that. This one just has a certain feel to it that they didn't achieve on any of the other movies. And I just love it. And the action sequences are all great. And, the effects are awesome. You get to see how the Tesseract really can just destroy things. And it's so cool. It's so cool. So yeah, this was a no-brainer for me. This one wouldn't surprise AJ. I don't think he's still watching because of the time difference, but this would not shock him to see this one. Yeah, there we go. Aaron Taft says Marvel movies were great up until Endgame. After that, they've been so. I did enjoy the last Spider-Man though. Yeah, good call. The Spider-Man that came out was it No Way Home, I think. The Spider-Man that came out after Endgame was good. But yeah, I'm with you. I honestly, to the point where I saw a couple of them, the first few, and then I haven't watched the recent ones. I have to go back because I'm just like, Quantumania was, Doctor Strange 2, unfortunately, was just a special effects dump. And then after that, I'm just like, okay, well, so I agree with you there. John Phillips says, more importantly, it gave us Haley Atwell. Yeah, Peggy is definitely, yeah, she's easy on the eyes. I will give you that. Not to be chauvinistic, but I will agree with that. Aaron Taft says, Steve Rogers was the ultimate underdog at first. And Troy Halter says, the humanity between Bucky and Steve was really nice. When I do an MCU rewatch, I'm always surprised at how much I enjoy Captain America. Yeah, it's weird, man. I've had a lot of people say that. He seems to be, in my circle of friends, a little overlooked, I think. I mean, all my buddies are just super Iron Man fans, and my wife is a huge Iron Man fan, but they kind of talk about the Hulk and Thor and, some other characters more. And their complaint about Steve Rogers is that he's just kind of goody two shoes. Which I don't have a problem with. I think when you have that many characters with these kind of differing personalities, you've got a Norse god and you've got the Hulk and you've got billionaire goofball ego guy Tony Stark. Like I think having the squeaky clean Captain America fits right in there. So Chastity Crawley checking in. Good to see you. She says very late, but wanted to say hey y'all. Great to see you, Chaz. Hope the pregnancy's going good. All right, so I have one more on my list, and then I have a quick honorable mention that no one's going to agree with. My wife thought I was stupid for listing it, but I'm sticking to my guns. So this last one, let me see. This one was released, I want to say 2016. Yeah, December 16th of 2016. And we're going to go back to where we started. We're going to hit Star Wars again. And yeah, if Empire is a perfect film and the best Star Wars movie, this one is damn close. And it's amazing for the fact that it came that close to The Empire Strikes Back. I'm, of course, talking about Rogue One. So I've said this many times on the show. I never expected this movie to be as good as it was. I wasn't one of those people who was going, why do we need this story? Like, do we really need to know how they steal the Death Star plans? I wasn't one of those people. I was like, okay. But nothing about it grabbed me. And, I'd seen the trailers. I was like, no, okay, whatever. And it wasn't until like about a month before the movie came out that I actually started getting pumped up for it. I was like, finally got into that Star Wars mood. I'm like, oh, yeah, new Star Wars. But I had no idea going in like just how much I would love it. And especially the character of Chirrut Imwe, because when I saw the trailers and some stuff they'd released, I'm like, a blind guy beating up stormtroopers with a stick? What kind of stupid shit is that? And I go see the movie and I come out and I go, the blind guy beating the shit out of stormtroopers with a stick is my favorite character. Yeah, Troy Halter, poor gullet. AJ does a great Saw Gerrera. He does it so well, man. I wish he was here to do it. But yeah, I even without the surprise that was this movie, I think this would still be up there as like just an untouchably great, flawless film. The story's awesome. It's so cool because it's a story we didn't think that we needed. It's, did anybody really ever ask, well, how'd they get the Death Star plans? No, but nobody did. And truthfully, it's like this movie is based on like one line in the opening crawl of A New Hope. They took that one sentence and made a 2.5-hour movie out of it. And it's amazing. The story is so unbelievably badass. There were so many stupid ways you could have gone with, they got the Death Star plans. And they just handled it masterfully. And the characters, like you get invested in each one of the characters, even though they're just around for this one movie. And just the battle scenes are so well done. They're so kind of gritty and more realistic, which is just fucking great, man. And I'm a dummy because obviously everybody dies, but because I'm an idiot like this, I wasn't thinking that was going to happen. So when we're going through the movie and then all of a sudden K2 dies, I was like, wait, what was that? Wait, huh? What the hell? And I was like, oh God. And then they start picking off the characters one by one and I'm going, oh no, you got to be kidding me. So all of a sudden it just becomes that much more serious because you're like, we're losing these heroes that we've really become invested in. And so it adds like an emotional stake to it. It's really cool to kind of see Jin turn the corner um, from being just this kind of scavenger criminal to being the okay, well, we're gonna, we're gonna do this. We're taking on this mission. Fuck the Empire. Um, and I think what I love about it is they kind of handle it the way that the prequels handled Darth Vader, or Anakin's turn to the dark side, where it's not just heavy-handed like, oh, I'm this kind of attitudey kid, now I'm a whiny teenager, now I'm the bad, I keep getting more and more bad just because I'm getting more and more bad, and Jin just doesn't you know go, well, I got captured, I'm gonna do this, oh no, I'm fighting for the cause. Like, no, it's they bring her father into it, um and she kind of is like, okay, like, I it kind of dawns on her the importance of fighting back and taking part in this, budding rebellion and stuff like that. So I thought that was done really, really well. And you like each of the characters. They're really, really cool. Obviously Jin is a great character. Cassian Andor, I mean, shit, man, they made that TV series, obviously, that everybody loves. I mean, Baze and Chirrut are just amazing. They're definitely the standouts for me. And K2SO, man. Like, who doesn't love K2SO? I mean, you finally get a droid with attitude, like a more kind of like a personable, personable droid, but with like the snark, you know, I I'm with you, Jin. And you're like, oh, Cassian said I had to. Like, it's like stuff like that, you're right. I should have just stayed on the ship. So, um, yeah, and and Troy brings up a really good point. He says, "I loved how Rogue One showed us that the rebels were actually kind of criminal and ruthless." Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's the first time you kind of start seeing different colors to the different factions. Because and AJ's talked about this on the show, where previously it's just okay. Well, the rebels are the good guys, empire is the bad guys, and clearly the empire's in the wrong. But we start finding out in Rogue One, well, that's not necessarily the case. Like, the rebellion has to do some pretty shady shit to you know to achieve what they're trying to achieve. So that added a new layer to Star Wars, which was really, really cool. And I think one of the other things that really, really makes this movie great, and it's a hindsight type of thing, is that it was the first non-Skywalker saga story that we got. And I think it proved, okay, there can be other stories in this universe on the big screen that we care about that don't necessarily have anything to do, that don't have to have anything to do with that main storyline. And because to me, again, when it was first announced and the trailers, I was like, yeah, whatever, okay, cool, it's a Star Wars movie, I'll watch it. But it kind of felt like comic books and books. I've said like some of the Star Wars novels I just am not a fan of, because I'm like, we don't need all this detail. Like, this story doesn't matter to me, it's just superfluous. And this kind of felt like that. But then the movie I came out of, I was like, oh, I was wrong. I can care about these ancillary stories. And it was the first time they really expanded the universe into something beyond, Jedi and Sith. And it was just incredible. And it is so rewatchable. And to me, it gets better and better every single time I watch it. And I think that's a testament to just the incredible quality of the movie, is that when you watch it and you keep finding more and more things to appreciate about it, instead of, well, I didn't notice that before, we could poke a hole in there. Yeah. So yeah, but anyways, so yeah, that's the last of my 12. Very, very cool. Troy says we got Krennic. Yep, great villain. Great villain. He said, yeah. Aaron Taft says, I love how you can watch this, then go straight into A New Hope. Yeah, that's a good watch, actually. That is a very cool watch. I've done that, and it kind of like it adds a layer to A New Hope, which is really, really fun. like I said, Troy said, I love how Rogue One shows rebels are actually kind of criminal and ruthless. He says, I love K2SO. Yeah. And then, yeah, it's a good point. He says, he says the trailers with nothing from the final film. Yeah, right. This was the first time they did that, wasn't it? This was the first time we were like, wait a minute, where was, because the one I distinctly remember was when Jin was out on that like catwalk at the top of the transmission tower, and that TIE fighter comes floating up, and you're like, whoa, dude. And that wasn't in the movie. I was like, and we were all leaving the theater like, where the hell was that scene with the TIE fighter? And then that just kind of started the whole thing of now we know when we get a Star Wars trailer that anything we see pretty much is probably not going to be in the damn movie. Like, or if it is, it's in the first like 3 to 5 minutes of the film. Like, we don't get shit, man. So definitely started a lot of new trends in Star Wars, and it was, the catalyst for a lot of things that would come afterwards. So yeah, so that's those are my 12. Real quick, I would like to do a quick honorable mention. And no one is ever going to agree with me on this one, but I don't care. It's my list. My wife thinks I'm an idiot for including this movie. But this movie, let me see what the release date was here. Let me see. It was a few years ago at this point. More than this was released, okay, September 22nd of 2011. I'm talking about Human Centipede 2. Yeah. I'm alone on this one, but I don't care. This movie is great. I think it's become my favorite horror movie, potentially. I just love the concept behind it. Basically, the first one, a lot of people, and I have to admit I was one of them, with the original Human Centipede, people were saying, well, that's not as bad as I thought it would be. And it really pissed the director off, and the writer-director, Tom Six, to where he said, oh, okay, you don't think that's bad? Well, fuck you, check this out. So he made this one as gnarly as possible, to the point where it had to be in black and white because of all of the just visceral gore and, oh, man, just the brutality of it. Yeah, John Phillips, he says, yep, you're alone on this, JT. The reason this is on my list as an honorable mention is because when I watch a horror movie, I like it to be gory. I like it to be fucked up. And this movie is fucked up and gory, man. Again, I love the concept where the director's like, oh, you didn't think the first one was gross? Well, I'm going to really gross you out with this. The deaths are just brutal. The plot of the movie is basically that this is happening in real life, and there's this gross, dumpy, toad-like parking garage attendant, and he's obsessed with the movie Human Centipede, and he thinks it can be done, so he has hatched a plan to actually make his own Human Centipede. But instead of with 3 people, I believe it's with 12. And of course, he goes about doing it with household items. And it's just, oh my God, it is just brutal, man. And I love it. I love it. I showed this to AJ and our buddy Matt Dixon when we took a train trip a few months ago. I think it was back in September, and we were out in Virginia, and I had mentioned it, and I had it downloaded to my tablet, and I have a HDMI that I sling my tablet to the hotel TV, so we don't, if in case there's nothing to watch on the hotel television, I can watch shit on my tablet. Anyway, so I had this one downloaded with Halloween coming up and stuff, and they're like, okay. So I played it for them, and they were like, what in God's name was that? That was awful. Like, in terms of like graphic, and also, they weren't the biggest fan of the story. I'm like, but this is what horror movies are about. It's upsetting. It's horrifying. And yeah, Troy Halter said that's pretty meta. Yeah, and that's what's cool about it. you know, like it's such a cool way to tell that story. This guy, that Human Centipede is just a movie, but this guy thinks it's real. I mean, to the point where one of the characters, the guy actually gets one of the actresses from Human Centipede he kind of like cons her into thinking that he's like a movie agent. He's got a part for her. So he gets the actress from the first movie to come, and he specifically gets her to be a part of his Human Centipede. So, oh my God, it's just so messed up. But that's what I like in my horror movies. And I think there's like a foreign version that's colorized, and I think you can only get it on eBay. So I keep searching for it, but I'm trying to find a colorized version just to make it even worse. But part of me wonders if it would be ruined if I saw it in color, because the black and white kind of makes it really, really stark and kind of even more disturbing, because you're like, okay, what am I not seeing? But yeah, if you're into really messed up, just kind of, just put it this way, that at one point the guy, how can I use it a politically correct term here? Paddles ham, we'll say, to the Human Centipede movie, but he does it using sandpaper. So there you go. Yeah, I think that's all you need to know about Human Centipede 2. So yeah, check that out if you're into like really, really messed up stuff. And thank me later, or tell me I'm completely just, fucked in the head for having recommended it to you. So yeah. So anyways, guys, that's those are my list of my 12 perfect movies and one honorable mention, that being, of course, Human Centipede 2. So quick rundown of my list for those of you guys tuning in late. I have Empire Strikes Back, Back to the Future, Top Gun, Raiders of the Lost Ark, RoboCop, the original, not the remake, on the remake, Saving Private Ryan, Superbad, Dolores Claiborne, The Mist, Terminator 2, Captain America, First Avenger, and Rogue One. So yeah, Troy Halter, not gonna lie, curious but not that curious. I would say put it on for a few minutes and see. It's definitely an interesting watch, man. John Phillips, I figured you'd get that reference. He says Aiken never thought of paddling ham that way. Yep. Yep. Aaron Taft says, here's a few I consider perfect: The Natural, The Dark Knight, the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy, and Hoosiers. Lord of the Rings trilogy is hard to argue with, man. That is very hard to argue with. Dark Knight, also awesome. And I've not seen The Natural or Hoosiers, so I can't comment on those. But so yeah. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. Sorry for it just being me filibustering about movies I like, but as I said, AJ is in France, so hopefully he has safe travels back home. I'm kind of a fan of his, so I'd like it if he makes it back here in one piece. So yeah, we will be back here, both of us, on Wednesday, January 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think we're probably going to do what I mentioned at the top of the show. I think we're going to start with The Last Jedi, and it's kind of interesting. Again, we're not changing plot points, but the topic is going to be something or other based around, like, do we think we could improve The Last Jedi? And we love the movie, so we're not saying it sucks or we're fixing. Again, we're not fixing plot points because that involves writing. And to say that we can write better than people who wrote a movie that made $1 billion is completely untrue and a total fallacy. So it's just us saying, hey, here's some cosmetic things we could do that I've noticed in rewatching the movie a few times recently, that I think if some of these changes were made, people that don't like the movie might have enjoyed it more than they do. So yeah. So I think we're going to talk about that. If we don't, we'll figure something out. AJ and I are always awful at coming up with topics. So, but hey, in any case, we'll be back here on January 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Once again, guys, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. I do have a recommendation. Audible has started to release the Harry Potter series again, but they're full cast audio with sound effects and everything. And I've listened to Sorcerer's Stone so far, and my wife and I are partway through Chamber of Secrets. It is excellent. It is such a fun way to listen to those books. So if you want to get it for free, just sign up for Audible. Get that free audiobook and download Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone full cast edition. It's awesome. So that's my book recommendation for tonight. Guys, if you would like to get customizable Nerfherder Council swag, just go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. If you would like to get some virtual Cantina Network swag, go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. And guys, if you are watching on our YouTube channel or that of the Virtual Cantina and you haven't done so already, click the like button, click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live, but also every time that some of the other, or all of the other, I should say, awesome programs here on the Virtual Cantina Network are on air. There's tons of stuff all week long, great content by all the other hosts. They're much more knowledgeable than I am, and they don't sit here and just talk by themselves for 2 hours. They're a little more disciplined than I am. So in any case, thanks for tuning in, guys. Chastity Phillips, great to see you. John Phillips, Troy Halter, Aaron Taft, Joseph Wren, much appreciated to all you guys. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. It was great to see everyone. And again, we'll see you in 2 weeks on Thursday, asshole. On Wednesday, January 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, JT, and we will see you guys next time.